prosecutors believe they had, and then there was the moment where O.J. Simpson's trying on the glove, and it seems to not exactly fit. And in the end, the jury did acquit O.J. Simpson. Well, there are gloves in this case as well. And it's a case where the defense has said there's no forensic evidence tying Grant Amato to this crime. Well, this is, I think, the closest prosecutors can really get in terms of forensic evidence tying Grant Amato to this, but it's not the greatest evidence, but it is evidence. And what we're talking about is on these two gloves that were found in the hotel room in the duffel bag, gunshot residue on those gloves. Gunshot residue. Also on the gloves, on the inside cuff of one of them, was the DNA of the defendant. But there's more evidence involving the gloves, and the jury got to see it today. Jericho Fine, a friend of Grant and Cody Amato, went on a trip to Japan with the two brothers. There were some photos there, and there was also a pair of gloves.
Can you give the jury some sense of how often the defendant would wear those black leather gloves while in Japan? I'm not talking about minute by minute or hour by hour, but just on a daily basis, can you give us some sense of how often he wore those black leather gloves?
Most of the time we were there, it was cold enough, and he was wearing those gloves.
Do you recognize 203?
I do.
Do they appear to be the gloves that the defendant was wearing while in Japan?
Yes.
How important, how much weight will the jury give these gloves? Gunshot residue, they got the expert, maybe their last witness in front of this jury is going to say there's gunshot residue on the outside of these gloves. Let me bring back in my think tank, Tiffany Porter, always skeptical of this type of evidence. Gunshot residue. You guys been looking, you've been wondering, where's the physical evidence? There's some physical evidence.
That's still not enough. They already had someone testify that they were shooting before. They had been out shooting before and he shot the gun. So that could explain it there. As a defense attorney, I can definitely...
But he never wore those gloves while he was shooting.
How do you know that?
From the witnesses.
From what witnesses?
Jericho, Blake, they went to the gun range and he never wore those leather gloves.
But what about when he shot
They're
the gun?
in Florida.
Who was there?
Who was there?
When he just shot the gun. I thought I was under the impression that he shot the gun not only at the gun range but outside of the gun range. So I still don't think it's enough.
I don't think it's enough, but again, it goes to, are the jurors predisposed? What are they thinking? If they want to not like this guy and think that because we don't like him, he's more likely to be a murderer, we need an answer. We need to close this case. We can't leave it unanswered. We can't have a murder that goes unpunished.
How does the gunshot residue get on the gloves unless he's firing a gun with those gloves on?
That's what the jury says. They say that guy is the one that must have done it. If they want to find somebody guilty, they're going to find him guilty.
You can fire a gun, and that doesn't mean, even with the gloves on or whatever, you can fire a gun. That doesn't mean I killed someone, right?
There are very few murder cases where you get gloves that have gunshot residue and the suspect's DNA on it. So it could.
So you're saying that's good evidence?
I just don't. Yeah. What else is that?
Yeah, Kelvin, your thoughts about the gunshot residue on the gloves that are in the hotel room, in the duffel bag of the defendant with his DNA, gloves that he clearly was wearing almost every day over in Japan.
Well, think about this. That's the only thing that they found in the bag that had gunshot residue, nothing else. So if the theory is that, he got rid of his clothes but kept these gloves, why? I think that a better explanation is that these gloves belong to Grant Amato. They're tied to him. They have gunshot residue from who knows what, but it's definitely not unexpected because again, this is a gentleman that was friends with many people that fired a lot of weapons. He fired weapons. It's quite remarkable to say that this has any significance whatsoever. The gloves belong to him. They got gunshot residue. So what? I don't think it's a very big piece of evidence in light of everything else that has been presented and that the prosecution's still going to present. This may actually just serve to confuse the jury, but again, I don't think I would have put a lot of weight on that.
I don't think it's confusing I don't think it's confusing at all. And they live in Florida, right?
Yes.
So why would he ever
Florida.
unless he's shooting guns when he's in Japan where he's cold otherwise, why else would you have? I guess why else would
He's
your
definitely not shooting guns in Japan.
yeah, why would your gloves have?
People shoot guns with gloves on. I mean, but there's just so many holes that I could poke into the prosecution's case. And my other question is,
How did the gunshot residue get there? Give me a reasonable explanation. That's all. That's all I want is a
he was
reasonable
shooting
explanation.
before. He was
What?
shooting before.
With the gloves on?
Yes, with the gloves on.
How do you
shooting
prove
with
that? I guess he's got to testify.
How do you disprove it?
I guess he's got to testify.
As Kelvin said, this doesn't add anything to it. If you're looking for a murder weapon and there's no murder weapon, or you're looking for an eyewitness and there's no eyewitness, this is the next best thing the prosecution has. That doesn't make it a conviction, but they needed that. I mean, without that, they wouldn't have even brought the charges, in my opinion.
Without the gunshot residue.
Yeah, jurors like that science stuff. They like to hear that there's DNA, that CSI effect, and so I do think even whether or not it ultimately is good evidence, I think that it is very persuasive to
Well,
a
his
jury.
friends, they were all buddies. They're shooting buddies. They go to the range together, and he never wore these gloves at the range. So
That they
When-
saw.
Right, but think about
when
this.
is he wearing these gloves other than to commit a murder?
No, but think about this. The sheriff's department gave him 3 nights at Hampton Inn. He stayed there for 3 nights, and he didn't get rid of the gloves. That
No,
he
no, no. They got the gloves before that. They got them
Okay.
at
The
the
Doubletree.
DoubleTree.
Okay, so they
In
got
the
those
duffel
at
bag.
the DoubleTree, and he still. My argument is he still sat there for 3 days. He didn't try to go anywhere. He could have left. He wasn't under arrest at that time.
Didn't have any money. He
Well, I
had
think this
nothing. They had to
will-
buy food for him.
You
If
can
you're,
walk
if you're
people
worried about
around.
being arrested for murder, though, I mean, Tiffany raises a good point.
Come
If you
on,
think
yeah.
you're about to be caught for a murder, you don't sit around and say, "Oh, I know the sheriffs know where I am because they're paying for it."
No, well, they're paying for it, and they also have a cop outside keeping an eye on you, by the way, so you're not going anywhere.
But he can.
Where's he
Why
going?
not?
How's he going anywhere?
He wasn't under arrest.
So, Kelvin, here's a new one from the defense, and I want to throw. So, is lack of flight evidence of innocence?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
It's a new jury charge I want to give to the jury, right? Tiffany just made it up. It's called lack of flight. Is you can infer is proof of innocence. The fact that he did not flee from the Hampton Inn is proof that he didn't do it.
Yeah, good luck with that.
See, I got Kelvin to agree with me, Tiffany.
I thought Kelvin was going to agree with
Yeah, but I understand, and you can make that. But you could make that argument, and some juror may grab onto it. And obviously, we're having a back and forth here. But I'm a little concerned by some of these questions that the jury has overall, because every time they question something, they're questioning something that is kind of like a potential hole in the prosecution case. But on the positive side, they're able to fill it with the answer.
Whether it's satisfactory or not.
And that becomes the question. That becomes the question. So, gloves, good evidence?
Good evidence for the prosecution.
Good evidence?
Better than no evidence.
Well, that's not good. And you're
good.
saying it's no evidence.
No.
Kelvin, you're saying it's no evidence as well, these gloves. We should disregard these gloves. They don't even come up to OJ standards.
In the light of everything else, I don't care about the gloves.
I am shocked. I'm trying to figure out, all right, how else does it get there? And I know the defense is going to argue transfer, but transferred from what? From what? Doesn't Grant now have to testify about shooting a gun with these gloves?
Still better off not testifying.
No. He does not need to be on the stand. Ever.
Ever?
Ever.
It'll be a nosedive
The
downhill.
only one that can answer that is his lawyer, who knows what he's like and knows what he would say and knows how he would testify. They got to make the call.
Kelvin, do you think at this point, because we're getting close to, I mean,